Hello friends. What if Naruto's journey had finally reached the point where everything was about to change forever? Welcome to part 10, where powerful emotions, dangerous enemies, and life-changing decisions collide. Before we begin, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Let's start the story. It has been several weeks since she and Mabui have seen the blonde stud muffin at the cage summit, and they were very eager to get a taste of his wondrous giant prick. Are you sure he's home? We've been knocking for several hours, Karui. Mabui said. I swear if that handsome blonde bastard doesn't open up, I'm gonna beat the ever-yellow fuck K out of him again. Karui yelled with her fists clenched. Mabui held her friend backwards to restrain her from barging through the door and laying another smackdown on the poor blonde. Don't be so hasty, Karui, we just need to be patient. I'm sure he's just sleeping, said the older woman. Sleeping my ass. It's like 4 in the afternoon. Who would sleep in this late, and if he's gonna do any sleeping, it's sleeping with us. Just then the door to Naruto's part of the estate opened up and the two black-skinned women were greeted to the sight of Minato. What's with all the ruckus? Can't the original Yellow Flash get some sleep around here? The former 4th Hokage groaned in annoyance. He rubbed his eyes for a moment before noticing the Kumo Kunoichi. Oh, a pair of Kumo Kunoichi, how may I help you? We're here to get slammed into a coma by your sexy stud of a son. Now move it and go do Hokage stuff. Karui pushed Minato out of the way and dragged Mabui behind her and headed upstairs to Naruto's bedroom, much to a shocked and surprised Minato. I really need to find some PC since Naruto got Kushina and Mikoto pregnant. No PC will be as good as theirs, Minato said with a shrug before heading over to the Hokage office for the day's work. As much as he was proud of his son for landing 2 hot MILFs, he was still aching to get back into a healthy life. That was until a thought crossed his mind. I recall meeting that tsunami lady from the waves as a teenager. Maybe she'd like some of this Yellow Flash. Naruto's bedroom. Here's his bedroom, now let's go get our blonde, Karui said, turning the doorknob to the room. The two chocolate-skinned women stood there for a moment before they heard someone walking to the door. The sound of the footsteps got them both excited, as they hoped it was the blonde whose cook they desperately wanted to plow their cunts. Since they came for the incredible ex they've been hearing so much about, and knowing Naruto was coming to open the door, two Kunoichi began to undress themselves until they were stripped down to their natural, clothes-free state and stood there. The doorknob turned and slowly the door opened to reveal Naruto, who had AX marathon with the rest of his harem earlier, was standing before them without clothes as well. Karui and Mabui marveled at his sexy, muscular body, and his massive cook immediately made their pussies drip. Damn, it's even better in person, Karui thought in amazement. That book is easily the tastiest and biggest looking thing I've ever seen. Naruto is truly blessed, Mabui thought, rubbing her thighs together. Oh shit, aren't you ladies from Kumo like Samui and Yugito? Naruto asked. The girls couldn't think of words to say as they were busy marveling over Naruto's hot body, and the blonde took note that they were without clothes as well. Karui was thin, but she was curvy and had B-cup-sized tits, while Mabui was thick and her were huge fuck G jugs, about a double D size like Kurenai, Tsunade and Maze. Well, hello there you beautiful chocolate ladies, what brings you to my estate? Naruto said, placing a hand on his crotch and squeezing it. The ladies took notice of this and thought that the sight before them was hot as hell. Reaching out with their hands, they placed them on his muscular chest and pushed him into the room before following suit. Mabui turned to lock the door behind them as Karui planted her lips against the blonde's, and even though he was caught off guard by the kiss, she wrapped his arms around Karui's petite waist and returned her kiss with just as much lust. Mabui then joined in on the fray when she grabbed the blonde from behind, and with the aid of Karui the two dark-skinned Kunoichi tossed the blonde onto his huge bed, and they noticed that the other women in the harem were knocked out. Whoa, so that's how many women you have in your harem now? Karui questioned. Oh yeah, now you two are gonna be in it, and when I'm through, fuck G the two of you, Naruto said before reaching up and grabs a from each woman, making the two moan in pleasure. Mabui straddled Naruto's neck so that her wet PC was dangling mere inches from his hungry mouth, while Karui decided to play with his cook and balls. Naruto didn't waste any time to begin his vicious assault on Mabui's juicy PC, and the feeling of being licked there made the busty dark woman moan as she had never been touched there before. Oh fuck K, that feels so fuck G Naruto, she moaned. Karui wrapped both her hands around Naruto's abnormally large shaft and began to lick it starting from his balls. She not only licked his testicles, she also opened her mouth to engulf the massive spheres, and the warm feeling of Karui's mouth made Naruto groan while he was performing cunnilingus on Mabui. The sounds of his groaning provided extra stimulation for Mabui's callet, and she let out a slight squeal from the lovely feeling. Damn, seriously, does this guy have the biggest balls and duke of any human being on this planet? Karui thought as she continued to engulf and sack on his balls. Fuck K it, who fuck G cares, his balls taste fuck G great. I can get a meal just saying his skin. Karui tried her best to stroke his enormously thick shaft with her little hands while she threw his balls off, and the feeling of this made Naruto increase his efforts in pleasuring Mabui's lovely PC. Oh fuck K Naruto. Mabui moaned in bliss. Feeling unsatisfied with just seeing his balls, Karui called out to her colleague, and hearing her name, Mabui turned to see her younger friend motioning for her to come join her in pleasuring Naruto's rod. Hang on Naruto, I want to help Karui with something, Mabui said as she lifted herself off of him. Sure, do what you gotta do Mabui-chan, said the blonde. Crawling over to Karui, the two chocolate kunoichi positioned themselves on both sides of the massive rod and wrapped both their hands around it, and the feeling of having four warm little hands on his shaft made Naruto hiss in joy. This cook is way too fuck G big for one kunoichi to handle, let's give this guy double trouble of a blowjob. Karui quipped. Needing no more invitations, Mabui and Karui both began to stroke the bottom half of his duke while they moved their faces closer, and once they were within an inch of the duke they opened their mouths and began to lick the top half of the cook voraciously and viciously up and down a slow pace. Oh damn, never had the other girls do this double blowjob before. Feels so fuck G good. Naruto thought as he felt his mind go into overdrive. Mabui and Karui then began to increase the speed and pace of their hand-tongue job of Naruto's prick, and soon enough the blonde bastard began to moan loudly. So loud that a few of the unconscious and fuck K drunk women from the harem stir from the noise. Mabui then decided to up the ante, and releasing her grip on his shaft she pulled away and squeezed her together and maneuvered them close to the shaft, and creating space between her valleys she wrapped her jugs around the cook, and this sent new waves of pleasure coursing through Naruto's body. Nice one Mabui, my tits aren't big enough for that, Karui thought with a grin. Naruto swore he was going fuck G insane. He had never thought about doing something like this with the other girls in his harem, and the crazy but lovely feeling was too much for even his experienced cook and iron will to handle, and soon he began to feel the cum building up in his scrotum. Both women felt his cook begin to twitch uncontrollably and knew what was coming. They both picked up the pace, and after a few more minutes of stimulation Naruto let out a groan as he finally came, and the two kunoichi were caught off guard from how powerful his spurts of cum were. The power of the cum flying out of his urethra came out in huge spurts that sent the cum flying into the air before landing on their faces, looked up slightly and opened their mouths so that they could catch the incoming cum in their mouths, and the blonde bastard's loads were incredible. The coming lasted for a good 10 minutes before he used up this round's worth of cum, and he was left a panting mess. Mabui and Karui didn't even bother to swallow the gallon's worth of cum they each had in their mouths as they relished in the amazing taste of it. His cum is so tasty, tastes a bit like ramen, it's kinda sweet, Karui thought as she swirled the sperm in her mouth. Wait, it tastes like ramen combined with. Has he been eating all these girls so much that the taste of their PC juices affected the taste of his sperm, and now it tastes like that? That's kinda hot, Mabui thought in pleasure. Damn, that was some orgasm, Naruto quipped, and before he knew it he was being straddled by Karui, who had a look of pure lust in her eyes. Your cook and cum taste so fuck G good, now let's get to the real fun blondie, the kunoichi said. Naruto grabbed her small waist and lifted her up slightly so that her PC was positioned over his still erected duke, and the tip was ever so slightly touching her orifice, making her shiver in delight, and without uttering a single word Naruto forced Karui downward onto his cook, and he literally speared straight through her hymen, making her howl in pain mixed with pleasure, and immediately she was stuffed with all 17 inches of duke in her petite body. An outline of his meat scepter formed on her stomach, and the sight proved quite a turn-on for Mabui. The older dark woman laid back to relax and waited for her turn while she watched the sexual onslaught that would follow in mere seconds on poor Karui. Karui had her teeth clenched in pain as she tried to get used to having such amounts of cooked meat shoved up her virgin cunt. Holy fuck K, it feels like someone shoving an arm up my PC. Karui groaned. Well, you wanted my Duke and now you're gonna get it. Naruto said before he began to pound relentlessly into Karui's poor cunt, no longer making her a virgin. Karui screamed in pure ecstasy as she didn't expect the X to be this good, nor did she expect to be stretched out this much when she thought about having X for the first time. This guy's cook was really going to reshape her PC. Reacting on instinct, Karui gyrated her hips as fast as she could to match his overpoweringly strong thrusts, and that only added more pleasure to her, and she began to moan almost psychotically like a bitch in heat as she was mercilessly pummeled into by the massive meat spear. Her red hair and her arms were sent helplessly flailing around due to Naruto's insane thrusts, and Mabui absolutely loved the sight of watching Naruto's Duke withdraw and re-enter Karui's PC. We're talking about his cook outline in her toned belly. The blonde pounded Karui in the cowgirl position before the girl wanted to try something, so as he was thrusting into her she tapped him on his muscular chest, and that got him to halt its onslaught. What is it, Karui-chan? Karui then went to lay on her side and lifted her leg up, exposing her moist PC for Naruto, and knew what she wanted. Let's try a new position, you focus G-stud. Karui said, motioning for him to come to her. The blonde rubbed his hands and licked his lips before positioning himself by taking Karui's leg and placing it on his shoulder to support it, while he took his cook and positioned it at her orifice and proceeded to shove all 17 inches of his scepter into her needy PC, making her shriek in pleasure. Naruto thrusted his massive spear into Karui's petite body with such force it looked like she was undulating like a waterbed in motion. Holy fuck K, it feels like your cook is rearranging my organs. Karui cried out, her face scrunched up in both pain and pleasure. Oh, little Karui wants to have her organs rearranged. Naruto quipped before picking up the pace, and Mabui began to finger her callet to match Naruto's insanely fast thrusting, and she moaned as she began to fist herself. Fuck K. Karui screamed as she was left helpless from the super intense flugy she was receiving from the blonde. Every time Naruto thrusted into her, he made sure to apply inhuman amounts of force into them so that he can literally rearrange her organs, but yet, still so that he can penetrate through her cervix when the time came for him to come. Her super tight virgin cunt proved too much for him, and soon enough he began to feel a familiar feeling of an orgasm building up in his scrotum. Oh fuck K, here it comes. Naruto cried out as he came and dumped a crazy load of the baby-making sperm into Karui's hungry womb, turning the interior of the female organ as white as his sponge. Karui's face had a lewd expression on it as she relished in the hot feeling of her womb being filled with Naruto's cum, and she damn near fainted when she orgasmed alongside him, spraying her PC juices all over his cook, drenching it, and whatever missed the cook drenched the bed beneath them. Her head falling onto the pillow, almost as if she really did pass out, Naruto withdrew his cook from her body and whistled at the sight of it as it was covered from shaft to tip in his cum that couldn't fit in her womb. Damn, I sure came more than I usually do. Mabui had squirted as she watched them fuck K, and now with her masturbation session over, she got on all fours and crawled over to Naruto and wrapped her arms around him, pressing her huge jugs against his back so much that they flattened. Karui looks like she's completely out of it. Naruto, how about you show me a good time? Mabui purred into the blonde's ear. Naruto flipped Mabui around and forced her into the doggy-style position and placed his hands on her lovely cheeks. He spreads them out so that her wet private part opening was exposed before his almighty rod, and he places the head at her entrance and rubs it against her folds, making her twitch at the pleasurable feeling, and she blushed. Come on Naruto, don't tease me like that, the dark-skinned beauty whimpered. Naruto didn't say anything as he grabbed her by the waist and pulled her full force and impaled her immediately onto his scepter, and she let out a loud scream of pleasure as she was full to the brim with that battering ram of a cook. The tip of the head pierced through the hole that was her cervix and poked the interior of her womb, making her groan slightly. Oh fuck K. I've had some dukes in my life but never been so full before. So fuck G big Naruto, so fuck G big. The blonde Jonin began to pound into her PC with such force and ruthless efficiency that Mabui was a bit nervous that his cook would be shoved straight through her body and would protrude out of her mouth. She felt Naruto grabbed her by the wrists and pulled her arms back so that she was left completely defenseless as he continued to face K the ever-living daylights out of her, and she could only scream, not moan, scream in pure bliss as she relished in the feeling of the 17-inch duke being plowed into her sigh. For someone who isn't a virgin, she's tight as fuck K. Naruto thought with his teeth clenched. She was so tight that Naruto was actually struggling a bit to pound her smoothly, but after a few minutes of fluji he managed to reshape her PC enough so that his cook would slide in and out of her PC easily. Good god, you horse duked motherfuck cur fuck k this chocolate PC. I'm a proud Kumo solid for that duke. Mabui screamed. Naruto looked downward and saw a sight he really liked, hers slapping heavy against his waist, and each time hers struck it would jiggle wildly, and after 30 minutes of fungi her doggy style he decided he wanted to change things up a bit. Withdrawing his cook, Mabui moaned at the feeling of the organ leaving her body, and it seemed to go on forever until the entire shaft was out and Naruto forced her face into the pillow before she could see the situation and laid himself onto her backside and wrapped his arms around her neck, almost like he was putting her in a chokehold, but he wasn't really doing it. Mabui realized the compromising position he put her in and giggled to herself. "Oh Naruto, I didn't know you wanted to dominate me that badly," she said, but she then moaned and screamed as she felt Naruto's huge cook re-enter her PC, and he began to ruthlessly pound her once more so hard that the entire bed was shaking and she swore the springs were going to give out. Her entire body rocked with each power thrust the blonde was inflicting on her, and the sounds of their flesh colliding, Mabui's screaming and Naruto's groaning were enough to awaken the other ladies in the harem that they were actually watching the show before them while they wildly fingered themselves. "That's it, Sochi, show that girl who's boss," Kushina thought to herself, and she fisted both her holes. "Oh fuck K, oh fuck K," Mabui cried as she was left hopelessly pinned to the bed, her screams being muffled from her face being forced into the pillow. After a half hour of merciless fuck G, Naruto felt his balls tense up and knew another massive load of cum was going to spurt out of his duke. Thrusting a few more times, he let out a growl as he came into Mabui's PC. The speed and power of his ejaculation filled up her womb in almost an instant, and her walls and womb were painted completely white with his seed, and she relished in the hot feeling of the sponge in her lower caverns. The orgasm did not subside for another 20 minutes, and after he ceased to come, Naruto withdrew his meat scepter from her sai and flipped her over and almost burst out laughing. Mabui looked like she was 9 months pregnant from the amount of sponge dumped into her. "Damn Naruto-kun, you came full force in her," Mikoto said as she wrapped her arms around his body, joined shortly by the other women in the harem. About time you scored with some chocolate PC, Naru-kun. I've been dying to see how your children with them will look like," Yugito quipped. "I'll say, looks like he scored with all the Kuma women," Tamari said. A moment later, Mabui stirred awake, and slowly opening her eyes she saw a grinning Naruto hovering over her face. "Hello Naruto-kun," she said. "Ready for round 2, the blonde said. Mabui blushed as she knew that she had passed out during her orgasm, and with the amount of pleasure she felt from the duke being in her, she was a bit apprehensive about going a second round with the blonde bastard. "I don't know Naruto, you filled my womb and PC to the very brim with that lovely cum. I don't want to risk popping like a water balloon," Mabui said before being flipped over by Naruto, making her yelp. He spread open her cheeks once more and placed the tip of his cook against her anus, and she shivered in delight at the feeling, knowing what was to come. "I know Mabui-chan, but I'm gonna pound this delicious looking a hole of yours you won't be able to walk for a whole year," declared the blonde. Naruto shoved the bulbous head of his duke into her anus, and that was enough to make Mabui howl in pleasure at the feeling, since his glands was thick as all hell, much like the rest of his shaft. He clenched his teeth as if he was in pain, since her hole was so fuck G tight he was having second guesses on if he wanted to shove the rod of a cook into her s. "Fuck K," Naruto grunted. He turned to the other ladies in the harem. "You ladies mind helping me with this?" Tamari, Kuritsuchi, Karen, Kurenai and Kushina nodded, and crawling so that they were in front of Mabui, they all placed their hands on her shoulders and her head, and with one almighty push combined with Naruto pulling Mabui back, they pushed the dark-skinned beauty enough that she became stuffed with all 17 inches of his cook, and she screamed incredibly loud at this due to immense pleasure. Mabui swore his cook was going to reshape not only her stunels, but her entire focus G body, and the pleasure was so spine-tingling that she thought he would fuck K her so bad that his cook would shove her spine out and replace it. "Oh fuck." Naruto began to pound into her so powerfully that the entire bed began to rock like a mad bull, and the other women who were watching struggled to maintain their balance on the bed. That's how fuck G strong his thrusts were. Kushina saw the helpless state Mabui was in and decided to jump in on the action and positions herself in a way that her PC was in front of Mabui's face, and the Kumo woman took notice of this and began to eat Kushina's PC out, and the sight proved to be quite hot for the blonde fucker. The other women decided to go lesbian for a moment, and they all began to have a lesbian orgy while watching the sexy sight before them. Naruto turned his head when he heard the sounds of his other wives moaning, and the sight made his cock harden to unheard of hardness that he swore it felt like it was made of steel. The sight of the lesbian orgy proved too much, and he just couldn't contain his orgasm, and in one big thrust finished Mabui off and came into her sand in an instant. The gallons worth of cum became too much to contain in Mabui's tight littles, that excess amounts of it spilled out of her anus and created a huge mess on the bed. He still came for 5 minutes, and the other women took notice of this and rushed over to and scooped up whatever cum spilled onto the bed and drank it, not wanting their blonde's precious cream to go to waste. Hell, Naruto smirked at such a sight, and once he felt his coming ceased he pulled out of Mabui's with an audible pop and laid down next to the drunk Kumo woman who had passed out once more. Man, my life couldn't get any better, quipped the blonde. After scooping up the cum that spilled onto the bed, the other women joined Naruto and surrounded him on the bed and placed their arms on his chest, groin and duke, and soon they all fell asleep. Mabui and Karui mumbling in their sleep. Fuck K. Naruto. Hokage's office. Oh fuck K. That was amazing, Hokage-sama. The tsunami panted as she fell onto Minato's chest. Ever since Kushina and Mikoto had been claimed by his son, Minato knew that the two MILFs will never want his foot-long schlong ever again, so the Hokage decided to invite an old friend from Wave Country to fix K, being the daughter of a former client when his son went to Wave. Even in my 30s I still fuck G got it. Minato declared until the tsunami got off his chest and began to dress up. Tsunami, where are you going? To fuck K, your son. I want to see how much Naruto has grown and if the rumors are true, and I want to bear his child. Thanks for the fuck K, Hokage-sama, but I am getting off my pills when I see him. Tsunami said before taking off for the Namikaze estate, leaving the blonde Hokage without clothes and alone in his office. Man, that's so unfair. Minato shouted with a pout. The door to his office swung open and in ran Kakashi and Ebisu. Lord Hokage, we heard yelling. It is I, the great Ebisu, at your service, Lord Hokage. The weak Jonin said while spinning like a ballerina before coming to a complete halt. The two men then froze in shock when they saw their Hokage without clothes, cook still erected from fuck G tsunami, and they threw up, and Minato could only watch in amusement as the sight proved to be very comedic for him. Ebisu then walks over to the door and opens it slightly and places his head in the doorway. He then slams the door shut on his head, knocking himself unconscious. Kakashi was still puking, and somehow, the vomit flew straight through his mask and onto the floor, and he would continue to do so for half an hour before stopping. Wiping his mask, he looks at the Hokage who had taken the time to put his clothes back on. Want to go to Iron Country and get some samurai PC? Minato asked. That's it for part 10. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more Naruto What If stories. And comment below, what do you think should happen next? See you in the next video.